correct the ugly injustice existed in the past.
I'm very happy that the honourable member holds that view. If clearly I misunderstood entirely the import of what he now says he meant. Um, it would mean that the honourable member and I, for the first time in a long time, are at Edom on the transparency that is associated with this bill. But the first thing I want to remind the listening public and members of this chamber is that this administration has been successful in clearing up billions of dollars of debt due to Barbadians that accumulated in the last administration. One of the grave things that faced us when we came to government was the level of debt owed to Bajans, owed to Bajan companies. I don't think the honourable member went through those kinds of figures, and when he wraps up, maybe he should remind the public of those figures. Well into the billions of dollars owed to Barbadians for goods and services. Vast amounts of money is owed to Barbadians for VAT returns. Even greater sums of money due to Barbadians for return of income tax and corporation tax. And that, of course, had nothing to do with the compensation and the other claims, sir. If nothing else, this government has managed our cash flow and has been absolutely fair to the Barbadian public. I have had the responsibility, Mr. Speaker, for negotiating and settling a large number of those claims. Some went to court, others didn't go to court. Some were personal injury claims, some were complex pieces of litigation. But there was no element, sir, in which I, as Attorney General, or my staff in the AG's office, or this administration as a whole, picked and chose who we were going to pay, or picked and chose who we were going to negotiate. We didn't say, come forward, we'll take care of you because you support me in the last election, or you stand back because you didn't support me. Everybody was invited to bring their claims to the table, so to speak, and we negotiated them, and every single person got the same terms. Now, sir, this has been a difficult time for the country. It has been exacerbated because of COVID, because of the ashfall, because of the freak storm, because of Elsa. All of these things, sir, have served to reduce our capacity to earn money and to do better by Barbadians. When these things happen to businesses, they call it managing their cash flow. When it happens to government, the Minister of Finance has exactly the same obligation, trying to strike a balance between the revenue that comes in and the revenue that he has to pay out. We've had to take hard decisions, Mr. Speaker. I believe that the record will show that last year, the amount of money spent on health care was far, far greater than the amount that we had originally voted in the estimates. We didn't anticipate COVID. And the amount of money that has been spent year to date probably exceeds what we spent last year as well on health care. And all of the other support structures that we as a caring government have to put in place to make sure that Barbadians keep their head above water, sir. Whether it has to do with feeding individuals, making sure that if they're in quarantine, they can have the necessaries delivered to them and so on. At every turn, we've had to manage our cash flow. What this does, Mr. Speaker, is make the management of that cash flow in large measure a transparent exercise. Plain and simple. You know if you have a debt due to you by the government, when once the figures are settled, are agreed, then this is how you will be paid. Now, Mr. Speaker, the Series F bonds were to be paid in 18 equal installments. And, sir, the F? Series F? Okay. And yes, they were non-interest bearing. But what we've attempted to do is to help to manage government's outgoings in a way that protects the individual. Now, sir, we did not leave it to the vagaries of government's finances when we settle a matter so that you got to hope you're going to get a check this month. We issued bonds. And the scheme that is presented to the Chamber today is to result in an issuance of further bonds. The bonds, Mr. Speaker, are essentially security for the debt. They're security for the monthly installments that would be payable to the individual who is owed the money. Now, that gives the individual certainty. And then once we've struck settlement and the bonds are issued, the matter of payment is handled monthly by the central bank. Now, Mr. Speaker, these have not been times as usual. And so we've had to take the difficult decision of saying to people, if you don't want to get your money paid or secured by way of bonds, by way of installments, you have the option of taking a haircut, which is to say we will give you a 15% discount. Can you get all your money now? Or you can sell it to a third party on the secondary market. Now, you know, sir, the leader of the opposition did say that there's no appetite for government paper. I am told, and I believe that what I've been told is correct, that in fact, in terms of the government debt, it is trading at greater than par. So that government debt is actually considered to be a good risk for potential investors. No, Mr. Speaker, some may not want to take that route, and that's entirely up to them. But certainly, I am aware that the boss bonds, for example, have been selling like hotcakes because people want to have that investment opportunity. Now, sir, the other thing about this arrangement is that it is transparent because it applies to everybody. There's no choosing individual A over individual B. As long as you fall within this category and your amounts are guaranteed, then regardless of your color, your class, your creed, where you live, where you come from, who you vote for, there's certainty to the manner in which you will be paid and over how long you will be paid. Now, sir, I know that people will prefer to get cash in every instance. Nobody wants to take installments. Nobody wants to take installments. But we are managing our cash flow in much the same way as a business will manage its cash flow and tell you, I will take your goods, but I want 90 days before I pay you. That's managing cash flow too. It happens every day. Every day outside of this building, in the high street, in the low street, in the back street, wherever it is. People manage their cash flow by giving you terms for payment. But some people believe that the government has a bottomless pit, an endless amount of money available for it to service its debt. And therefore, as long as there's a debt due, it can be paid. Sir, this problem didn't start today. The last administration acquired vast amounts of lands. Didn't pay a cent one to any of the individuals. And now we have hundreds of millions of dollars of debt that is owed to people whose lands were acquired. Now, had a strategy been adopted which saw quick disposition of those matters, we would not be here now. But you know what happened? You take the land, Bushy Park Plantation, for example, 300 plus acres acquired by the last administration. They had a clue how they were going to pay for it, but they take it up. And the owners have said, we want $56 million because that's what our valuation says. And that has spawned litigation, which has cost time. And in addition to that, there's interest that is due under the Land Acquisition Act, which then compounds the problem. But they just took it up, didn't budget for its acquisition, had no care in the world. They just wanted it so they could dish it out to whoever they want to dish it out to. And so now we have to deal with that. People are entitled to be paid. But at the same time, sir, our responsibility to Barbadians is to manage our outgoings in such a way that we can still deal with the many things that we have to deal with. It happens every day in our households. It is highly complicated. I wouldn't want to be Minister of Finance for nothing. I would give up after the first day. But when you reduce it to its basics, Mr. Speaker, you've lost $600 million last year. Lord knows how much we're going to lose this year. That represents money that we cannot spend. But at the same time, we still have to pay salaries. Buses still have to be bought. Garbage trucks still have to be bought. People have to pay wages. The government still has to pay for oxygen. It has to pay for plastic. It has to pay, for heaven's sake, sir, for vaccinations. All of these things. None of these things have diminished along with government's cash flow, as long with government's income. Those things have remained at the same level, sir. So, Mr. Speaker, all we're trying to do is to keep faith with Barbadians by saying, yes, we are going to pay you. Yes, once we settle the amounts, you're going to be paid in 42 monthly installments. It is predictable. You know what it is. It is long. We know it is long. But I believe, sir, based on my discussion with the Ministry of Finance, that in situations where they can actually pay down debt, they will. In fact, Mr. Speaker, they have been doing it. In several instances since we came to government, there were debts that were owed to Barbadians that were supposed to have been paid in bonds, and the Ministry of Finance said, for various reasons, let me pay you in cash now. Take all your money now. And I'm satisfied from my discussions with the Ministry of Finance that if things are such that these debts can be taken off of the books, Mr. Speaker, they will be. But for the moment, we are in a difficult place. The government is not bankrupt. But in order to maintain some semblance of control and order over the many things that we have to do, Mr. Speaker, we could go and pay everybody tomorrow, you know. We could say, come, we owe you, come and get your money. We pay everybody tomorrow. But the question is, who will we then not be able to pay? Our salaries, our light bill, our water bill, the tablets that we need for schools, the medications that we need for polyclinics. It's about balancing, sir. I wouldn't want to be Minister of Finance, but believe me, Honorable Member, I feel your pain because I understand that at the root of it all, it's about balancing the competing claims and making sure that everybody gets what they're entitled to. So, I apologize to the Honorable Member if I offended him by talking about weaponizing. If that is what the last administration did, sir, then I believe the word criminal that was used here earlier in this chamber is one that would reasonably be applicable. That is not what we are about. Transparency, predictability, and being fair to all concerned, Mr. Speaker, and I support this bill.
Thanks, Mr. Speaker. Normally, I think this is the first time I'll be commenting on a bill that involves finance because I sometimes know how to stay in my lane, sometimes. But the Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central gave me the opportunity to say a few things which probably normally will not belong to this bill, but because he introduced some factors, I wish to comment on some things. No, of course I support the bill. One can only support the repayment of lands that were acquired. I had a constituent, I could think of one that was owed several years before this administration, and I'm sure he'd be happy to hear that. I'm happy about the payment in circumstances of disaster, although the deferral, as the Honourable Member for St. Joseph mentioned, it might not be upfront, but at least it's on the cards to be paid. What I would like to add at some point is that the cases, in my job, I see a lot of cases where people would have fallen down at work and expecting settlements. I met a lady, some 17 years later, she has not been paid for her injury at work. I have another patient where her husband was unfortunately killed by mistake by one of our police officers. She still awaits her payment. So if these things could be added at some point, I would be grateful. But the Honourable, what I really want to get to, the Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central was right in saying that the circumstances of COVID are real. They really are real. And I have some concerns, and this is probably maybe the best area I can speak on them. And COVID is real, and in my mind, it's about protecting our young people, young and old, but as the Honourable Member said, our young people are important in terms of attaining jobs, in terms of a guarantee of their health. So if that, I have a question, I as well as the public being the general public and the public being the members of the medical fraternity, namely BAMP, I have concerns with respect to the new protocol or the adjustment of the protocol that was put in place with respect to visitors to the country. I would like us, well, we like to say following the science, but I would like to know the scientific explanation. And I know I speak up for the members of BANT when I say so too, with respect to how the protocol of letting in tourists without a second test, which would be at day 5, which an event would be maybe 2 years in a hotel, two days in a hotel, which can really put off somebody on vacation. I would like to know how that comes into play here, especially where we have issues of the Delta. Yes, it's community spread, but the truth is the Delta, as far as we know, the Delta Plus and the Gamma are not here as yet. And the only way I see it logically is for that to be here is to come in through the ports of entry. I would still like to rethink of that protocol. And I say this, I'm a little disappointed that the president of the Barbados Medical Association, in my estimation, and correct me if I'm wrong, have been omitted from a lot of these discussions because we do have a lot to say. And if you're going to follow the science, it makes sense to follow the science of the medical people. In the country, we are working hard. They are working harder than I am with respect to COVID. But like everybody else, we are really tired, physically tired, mentally tired, concerned, and of course afraid, whether we like to admit it or not. So some of these things need to be addressed openly to us and the public. And I beg that this is, and I'm only bringing this up because the can of worms was opened by the Honourable Member of Christchurch East Central. I did have an opportunity to have a listen to the social media post that the Honourable Member for East Central got a little annoyed at, and I understand why he did, and I agree, but to me the simple solution to that perhaps would be to present figures to the public. We know the cost of the vaccines. I know the cost of the country for most of them, for two of the three of them. And I see nothing wrong in presenting to the public the cost of the vaccines. We know that the first of the vaccines, the initial set, were free. We know that the AstraZeneca was acquired at $4 per vial. We know that the Sinopharm $11 per vial, which is probably 10 doses, I stand corrected on that. It is probably time to be open with this gentleman, the member from the other house, the other place, so that we can put some of our worries and fears to rest. That's a simple solution. It sounds simple, but I'm hoping it is simple. It might be more complicated than that. These are some of the issues I had in mind. I never meant to keep the house delayed on it. The Honorable Leader of Opposition alluded that some of us might be afraid to speak. I am definitely one of those, and this is my opportunity to send a message to one of our, what do they call them, the calling programs, on the members that reassured me that if I chose to back out now, it would be facilitated. And it burned me, the moderator. This has been burning me for a little, since it came out, since I saw his comments. And I would like him to know that I will not be backing out, so he will not have to be worried about my facilitation. And this whole discourse is not about me, it's about my constituents and the rest of the country. So he can also hear what I am saying today. Thank you so much for your 5 minutes, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise not to speak on the bill. I believe the honourable member who introduced the bill would have indicated that there were some amendments that needed to be made, and on reflection, the Honourable Attorney General and myself have determined that we would like CPC to just look over those amendments and bring them back. So I'm asking for further postponement of the bill until, and reserve the right to speak again as well, sir. Thank you.
The question is that this bill be deferred for further consideration. All those honourable members in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it. This bill is deferred for further consideration.
Let me hear. You have it?
Mr. Speaker, order number 10, in the name of the Honorable Attorney General and Minister of Legal Affairs, to move the second reading of the Barbados National Honors and Decorations Bill 2021.
Honourable Member for St. Joseph.
Mr. Speaker, it perhaps should come as no surprise that consequent upon or having passed the legislation to move Barbados to a republic with a common R, not a capital R, and having gone through the exercise only last week of electing Her Excellency to be the first president of our nation, that shortly thereafter we would have to give mature consideration to our system of honors. Let me say to the Chamber and to assure Barbadians that notwithstanding that we are doing the bill in all of its stages today, a signal was given to the country long ago that this process where we sever the umbilical cord with England would result in us patriating to Barbados or claiming as our own a series of things. We have already signaled the renaming of the Royal Barbados Police Force to be the Barbados Police Service. There are changes that are going to have to be made in insignia for various entities. Her Majesty's Prison Dodds will cease to be Her Majesty's Prison Dodds. The Coast Guard vessels, which are prefaced by the words Her Majesty's Ship, those will also have to be renamed. And they will be done over a period of time, sir. But by our tradition, independence represents a time when we reflect deeply on the contribution of Barbadians to our lives, our quality of life, our livelihoods, and in reward for those contributions, bestow honors on them. Now, historically, sir, honors are a part of what is called the royal prerogative. And any of you who've watched a fair amount of old movies, you would from time to time see a king taking out a sword and knighting some trusty swordsman. I dub thee, sir, whatever it is. Those things were not regulated by statute, but were considered to be part of the royal prerogative to bestow honors upon citizens or subjects of the crown. Upon independence, by letters patent, which is a special authority coming from Her Majesty the Queen, we were vested with the authority to engage in a delegated exercise of that prerogative and bestow honors on Barbadians. Some of us who pay attention to these things would recognize that there was something called a local knighthood, which somehow or another always seemed a little bit, or perhaps more than a little bit, inferior to the knighthood that came from the palace. There are stories, sir, of individuals who, when offered knighthoods, were heard to ask which one it is. Is it the one from the palace or is it the local knighthood? Because that which we bestow could never, in their minds, compare to the one that came from on high. Mr. Speaker, and so we relied on letters patent to be able, in the name of the Queen, to say to the world that Barbadians were praiseworthy and that their contributions made them deserving of our national recognition. Now, obviously, sir, now that we've gone republic, we claim our constitution for our own. We begin to live that declaration in the preamble to our constitution, which says that Barbados hereby proclaims itself a sovereign state. One of the hallmarks of our sovereignty must be that we claim for ourselves the privilege of acknowledging the contributions of Barbadians. And that is all that this is about. Let me thank the Leader of the Opposition for so graciously agreeing that we should do it in all of its stages. I think he recognizes that there's a very short sprint between now and Independence Day, and there's a lot that has to be done. But this work didn't come up overnight. We have a committee which is called the Republican Transition Advisory Committee that has been working for months and made a lot of input into the recommendations for the amendments to the Constitution and how we should elect a president and so on. But part of their remit, Mr. Speaker, has also been considering those consequential changes, how our institutions will function, and how we should bestow honors on Barbadians. Interestingly enough, Mr. Speaker, and if you think about it, you might consider that what we did in 2019 for the first time by establishing the Order of Freedom of Barbados might have been events casting a shadow into the future. At that time, we had made no pronouncement about Republican status, but I believe, sir, that it represented the forward thinking of a cabinet that felt that we should have a local award that no Barbadian should ever consider could be seen in any way as being lesser than, subordinate to, inferior to any award that could be bestowed on us by a monarch from another nation. We talk about the chains that shackle us, Mr. Speaker. That has been one of the chains. And so in 2019, when we first awarded the Order of Freedom of Barbados, some of the individuals were given the option, and in the following year too, sir, they were given the option of a knighthood or of the Order of Freedom of Barbados. And I reflect with pride on the fact that several of those individuals said, I want the Order of Freedom of Barbados over any knighthood. Being a sir or a dame is a name, it is an appellation, but it hides behind a colonial past which does not allow our true Bajaness to emerge and to flourish. At that time, I couldn't say that we had Republican status fixed firmly in the crosshairs, but in a way, it is a good thing that we did it then. Because that which we enacted in 2019 is today going to be the head of the spring. Mr. Speaker, we've looked at those honors that we had in play under the letters patent. And let me say that we also had honors under statutes, which we enacted. So we had two streams. So the Order of Freedom of Barbados is one of those streams. That's by statute. But the Knight or Dame of St. Andrew, that's by letters patent. And sir, we've looked at the honors that we had, and we have deemed it important that some of those honors should continue. Sir, bravery doesn't have the Queen's crown on it. It doesn't have any monarchical tentacles on it. When we recognize a Barbadian for bravery for saving somebody from drowning, there's nothing about that, sir, that is tied to the monarchy. And therefore, several of those honors we have brought forward. And transplanted into this legislation, they will go forward now, not on the foundation of letters patent, not on the foundation of a royal prerogative, but on the foundation of the highest lawmaking body of this land declaring this for us is an honor that is sanctioned by the state and given in the name of the people of Barbados. But there are some that we've had to consider and make some changes to. So we currently have a gold crown of merit and a silver crown of merit. And the concept of crown in the titles of those two honors would immediately cause any right-thinking Barbadian to say, well, hold on a minute. Hold on a minute. We are severing the umbilical cord between ourselves and England. What symbol should we use? And perhaps, sir, it is obvious that the one that we've chosen is our trident. Our trident. The trident that finds its way on our flag. And so what is the gold crown of merit will now be the golden, let me give you the exact name in the statute, of excellence. Golden trident of excellence and silver trident of excellence. So, in a sense, those awards will cover the same territory, cover the same ground, but for us, we will be awarding to a citizen of Barbados a gold trident of excellence, a silver trident of excellence. We are claiming that award for ourselves. The other one that we are changing is what is currently the Companion of Honor of Barbados, CHB. And persons who have the Companion of Honor of Barbados are entitled to be called the Honorable. I believe one of them was in this chamber or in the precincts of this chamber earlier today. I don't remember anybody calling him the Honorable though. So maybe we should go back and do it now. But the concept of Companion of Honor again harks back, Mr. Speaker, to our monarchical origins. And we want to put that aside. And therefore, we have determined that we will have a replacement honor called the Order of the Republic. not the Order of the Republic of Barbados, because I want to remind Barbadians that our country that we lovingly refer to for all these decades as Barbados, it remains Barbados. Dominica, when they became Republican, they then became the Commonwealth of Dominica. And when it happened in Trinidad, they became the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. We don't need those terms, sir. That's why I make a distinction between republic with a small r and republic with a big R. The small r means that it is not part of our name. It is not who we are. And therefore, the order of the republic is to recognize that this country, which has now become a republic, wants to make an award to Barbadians that recognize who we are. And rather than the companion of Order of Barbados, we will now have the Order of the Republic. Now, sir, many of our honors are limited in terms of numbers. So it is a little known fact, Mr. Speaker, that in any single year you can only award 2 CHBs. And that there's a maximum of 15 CHBs at any time. So in order to be able to award somebody else another CHB, you literally have to wait for that person to die. For somebody to die so that you create almost a vacancy, a space. Now these limits are put on awards, sir, to demonstrate to people that they're not common things. They're not commonplace things. You know, like most things when they have too many of them, it tends to cheapen the worth. And we are not prepared to cheapen the worth of our awards. But at the same time, sir, we want to be able to, we don't want to have any artificial limit. Because if a person has excelled, why should we say to them, we only got 15, so we got to find something else for you? There's no logic to that. But equally, you do accept that you don't want people to go overboard, so we accept some limit, but we consider that 15 is too low. And therefore, we intend to increase the number of individuals, the total number of individuals who can be awarded the Order of Republic to 50, 50. In a population of 300,000, Mr. Speaker, in a population of 300,000, over time, not all in 1 year, but over time, we can find 50 worthy Barbadians who would be deserving of the honor. And in the schedule, it sets out the number that can be bestowed in any given year. So there are still going to be limitations, but we're saying that 15 is too low a number for us. We have Barbadians. You know, Mr. Speaker, if I had my way, I would give all of our frontline workers high national honors. But they're more than 50. And that brings me to the next thing, Mr. Speaker. Right now, an award is given to a person, single individual. But we consider that to be completely lacking in imagination. And we reflect on the fact, Mr. Speaker, that in 2017, the Nobel trustees awarded a Nobel Peace Prize on a UN committee, part of which included a Barbadian, Dr. Leonard Nurse. So we have a Nobel laureate, not because of his standalone individual effort, but because he put his shoulder to the wheel and helped a climate change UN organization to advance the cause. To advance the cause. And therefore, as a group of people, a Barbadian was able to get an award. Now I look forward to the day when, Mr. Speaker, a Barbadian will get a Nobel Peace Prize on his own 2 feet. But the point I'm making is that in our entire system of honors, we have never recognized the fact that together there may be individuals who can persevere and who together deserve the highest praise of our country. And Mr. Speaker, that is a novel change from all that we've had before. And I don't know who will get awards, sir. But I see police officers every day having to fight not just the cause of policing, but they fight the cause of law and order in the face of a COVID pandemic, which exposes them to additional risk. We see it with our nurses. We see it with our doctors. We see it with many, many categories of Barbadians who put their shoulder to the wheel in one way or another. And we therefore feel it's an important change to be able to recognize a group of individuals, because sometimes a single individual, it might not be possible to call out a single individual and give that one person the award, because that in itself might be unfair to the other 5, 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, 50 people whose efforts multiplied by his is what really takes us where we need to be. And so for the first time, we now have this concept of being able to award a group of people. And a group, don't ask me how many is a group. A group is more than one. A group is more than one. But it allows us the flexibility of saying to Barbadians who contribute to our greater cause collectively, that collectively you should be recognized. Now, Mr. Speaker, the question will undoubtedly be asked, what about those people who already have awards? I am happy to say, Mr. Speaker, absolutely nothing. Because we do not think it would be right for a parliament to take away from individuals who have been recognized by us and by others through imperial honors for the hard work that they've done. And therefore, if a person has received the highest award in the land, the second highest, the third highest, whatever award an individual may have received up to now, you received it for the work that you did. And we do not see any sense or reason in tampering with your honor, in changing its name, in converting it into something else, or in any way to perhaps subtract from what value it had at the time it was given. And so, Mr. Speaker, if an individual was knighted and was called Sir, that person could, if they wish, continue to be called Sir. This statute will recognize it, and for government purposes, therefore, if you were Sir Tom Jones, even though we will have done away with those honors, we will continue to recognize you and grant you the privilege of the station and the privilege of the title as Sir Tom Jones. Now, there are those who will feel that by going republic we should throw out those things, but I think that that would be the wrong thing to do, Mr. Speaker, to in some way try to diminish the value of that individual and the value of the honor to that individual at the time when it was given. Mr. Speaker, over the next few weeks, I believe over the next 2 weeks, once this bill is passed in the Senate, should they pass it, Barbadians will be seeing advertisements to invite nominations. Now, let me say this, sir. There are people who believe that there's a group, a cabal, a something of the political class who sit down and pick this body over the next body and so on. Now, Mr. Speaker, every single year advertisements are put out saying, we invite you to nominate individuals for national honors. These are the classes. But you know what, sir? Bajans can be a little lazy. Few of them want to exercise the judgment and go to the trouble of saying, I want to nominate Nancy for this award. And in my view, she should get it because of X, Y, and Z. Nobody wants to do that. But then the Independence Awards come out, and you will see it blow up on social media. Well, how come Nancy ain't get no award? Why not? She did there first. She did this. You know. Mr. Speaker, if you don't submit the nomination, who remembers bingo tickets? If you don't have a ticket, you don't have a chance. It is not about a lottery. But the fact is, Mr. Speaker, I, on behalf of my colleagues in Cabinet and my colleagues in Parliament, want to say to Barbadians that you need to nominate individuals for awards. I have nominated individuals for awards. But, Mr. Speaker, they will not, you know, some of these individuals are deserving, but they're not going to be high flyers. They may make a difference in our communities. But if we don't highlight them and put them forward as awards, then to stand around and grumble and complain, how come they didn't get none? Because you didn't submit one. So I'm not about beating anybody, Mr. Speaker, but I am saying that look out please for the invitation over the next few weeks in GIS and in other media for Barbadians to submit nominations for various categories. It will all be explained what the criteria is. We do it every year, but it's not noticed. Look around, and especially in this year of a republic, especially at this time, sir, help us to identify for recognition those Barbadians who have made a difference. It's not about money. Nobody asks how much money they have. In fact, it is at this point, sir, that we begin to level out people, because we're not interested in your financial or other worth. We're not interested in who your father is or your mother is or what reputation you might have elsewhere. We're interested in how have you served your fellow man in these 166 miles. So this is my entreaty, sir. This is my entreaty, that when the notices come out, that you please take the effort to identify for an award, for a national award, those Barbadians who, in your view, have served us greatly. It goes to a committee. That committee looks at all the information that's before them, and they make a decision. They make a decision. But it is a decision that I know is made in good faith and made honestly, and everybody won't get one, but at least you owe it to your fellow man to offer them an opportunity to receive a national honor. Mr. Speaker, the bill is quite straightforward. You will see that a lot of what we had before, we have kept. We're not throwing out, but we are changing and modifying to suit our current circumstances. So, for example, right now, and for all the years, the Cabinet Secretary has served as the Secretary of the various orders. And that will continue. It's enshrined here in this particular bill. So, Mr. Speaker, I commend this bill to the Chamber. I believe, again, I apologize to the opposition. I apologize to my colleagues for it coming so late. But the fact that it is late, Mr. Speaker, does not in any way take away from its significance. On Independence Day, when we become a republic, we not only claim our destiny, we not only claim our future, but we claim how we recognize the contributions of the past. I'm obliged to you. I beg to move that this bill be read a second time.
Honorable Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. This, of course, is a necessary and important piece of legislation that is brought to the House today, and briefly, perhaps, I might make a contribution. It relates to the continuing process of the move towards Barbados becoming a republic. There has been much controversy and misrepresentation around the opposition's position on some of this matter, and that opposition's position on much of this matter, and gives me the opportunity, perhaps with your leave, to just set the record straight, and again, read into the record that the parliamentary opposition is very much in favor of Barbados becoming a parliamentary republic with a non-executive president. Parliamentary opposition supported the nomination of the incumbent Governor General, Her Excellency, to become the first president and participate in the exercise of electing Her Excellency to that position. Just to clear up one or two matters which have been grist for the political mill and being the subject of misrepresentation by some. I saw it even in press today, Mr. Speaker, and some of it even found echoes in earlier debate today in this very chamber. I want to make it clear that the parliamentary opposition representing myself in meeting with the Honorable Prime Minister and her team to discuss matters relative to the process towards, the further process towards becoming a republic and the nomination of a candidate to become the president-elect. A meeting with the Prime Minister and her team, and the Honorable Attorney General, who was present, can vouch for this. There were others present whom I would not mention because they're not members of this honorable chamber or of the other place. But it was the parliamentary opposition, represented in myself, who insisted in the exercise of the vote for a president to be elected, even in the event of there being only one nominee. Having joined with the Prime Minister in jointly nominating Her Excellency to be the candidate, the parliamentary opposition, represented in myself, still took the view that in the absence of a referendum on the matter of republic and processes pursuant to that, that the totality of the people's representatives should be allowed to express their position, their view, individual view, on the matter. The people of Barbados are represented by their elected persons in this honorable chamber, and therefore I felt that though the Honorable Prime Minister was of the view that Her Excellency should be the nominee, and even before dialogue with her, I also felt that Her Excellency, based on the Ford Commission report, should be the nominee. Despite the fact that there would be that joint nomination, I still felt that members of the elected chamber, members of the Senate, the other place, if there was going to be a totality of the vote of persons occupying the halls of Parliament in both houses, each member should still have a vote. The Honorable Attorney General can verify that I insisted, even in the event of one nominee, that we should still have a vote. Because the Prime Minister may nominate a person. I might jointly support that nomination and offer the name of the nominee. But it may be that there may be persons on the side of the opposition or even on the side of the government who individually and personally and privately may not be in support of that nominee. So that in spite of the fact one name would appear on the ballot, a person would still have the opportunity, personally, individually, and I insisted secretly, to vote yes or no. The threshold established, again by my assistants, the Prime Minister advocated the idea of a 2/3 vote of the joint sitting of the lower house and the upper house. The Leader of the Opposition insisted that that should be a 2/3 majority of each house voting separately and voting secretly so that each member would feel comfortably assured that he or she could vote as he or she was pleased so to do. It was insisted that once one individual of the joint sitting of the two chambers, if there was only one, you didn't need more than one, who would voice an objection when the Honorable Speaker declared the name of the nominee, then the two houses would separate for a separate and secret vote with the aim of achieving a two-thirds majority at each vote in each chamber. I want to say and make it clear that the Honorable Senator who leads the business of the opposition in the upper chamber, seized of the significance of the moment and of the unique action which the Parliament was about to take, sharing the view of the parliamentary opposition that though we agreed in moving to the Republic, the process was a bit wrong and flawed, and the timing was also a bit wrong. The timing of the timing relative to the circumstances of the moment and not the timing of history in history. That though the honorable member from the upper house, he held the view that the occasion was such a momentous one and one of such significance that because he was of the view, as I was, that the process moving towards republic was wrong. We've said that from the beginning. And that the timing was wrong. He felt that the occasion was such that he should not attend the sitting to voice that objection and to vote in the negative because of the significance of the occasion and his desire not to cause any awkwardness. I want to make that abundantly clear. It was the leader of the opposition, represented in my voice, who encouraged the Honorable Senator, notwithstanding his position with respect to the process moving towards republic, notwithstanding his position with respect to the off timing of our move of the country towards republic. It was the leader of the opposition, represented in my voice, who encouraged the Honorable Senator to attend the sitting, to voice an objection if he felt like he should, and to vote according to how he felt led in the interest of expressing democracy and independent opinion and not to stay away. Those were the circumstances under which the honorable member attended the joint sitting of both houses of Parliament. You will recall, Mr. Speaker, as a presiding officer, you duly declared one name, being the joint nomination of the Prime Minister, Leader of the Opposition, and invited any voice of objection. And the Honorable Senator indicated that he objected. You rightly, according to the procedure, had a separation of two houses for an independent vote. My position, in the interest of democracy, encouraged him to come and participate. What transpired in the upper chamber, Mr. Speaker, probably would have to be addressed separately. I was not there. I have not even, by reference to any video recordings or audio recordings, looked at it or listened to it. If the Honorable Senator in the other chamber at the time when the vote was being called felt that there was something at odds with the process relative to the voting exercise, I'm sure, Mr. Speaker, you would agree with me that he was well within his right to voice that objection or to raise a query. If there were a confrontation that followed as a result of that, then those who officiate in the Senate would have to address that. But this is to say, it is totally a misrepresentation to suggest that the honorable senator from the other place came simply to the exercise to grab attention, to disrupt the proceedings, to make himself a nuisance. And I want to put that to rest. Anything that I have said, which bears reference to the occasion within which I sat with the Honorable Attorney General, the Prime Minister, and their team, if it's at odds with the truth, if it is inaccurate, or not connecting properly with reality, the Honorable Member for St. Joseph is at liberty to say it, to stand and challenge. With respect to the voting on the day, I personally found no problems at the time with the exercise in the lower house. If any senator, including the opposition, that senator in the upper chamber, felt there was a problem with the process, he was well, in my view, within his rights to make that known and to raise query. As to his conduct in so doing, I am totally unaware, Mr. Speaker, as to what went down. And I say that to you most sincerely. There are several who have sent me the video, and I have chosen not to look at it. I have confidence in the presiding officer in the upper house to conduct the proceedings with a sense of decorum, a sense of right judgment. I also have every confidence in the honorable senator to stand up when the time comes in the interest of the practice of democracy and in the interest of the people. I have not heard any voices, Mr. Speaker, reflecting on the fact that there were 3 government members who absented themselves on the occasion. I have not heard reference to that. People who sit with me on this side of the parliamentary divide in this house or the other side have been told what we are building here in Barbados is a democracy. And when you have to express yourself in the upper chamber, feel free to do so with an independent view, especially on matters of conscience and on matters such as this. This was a democratic exercise. They don't feel and should not feel, and I'm certainly not of the disposition to have them feel that they must say what I say, as seems to be the case over there. We don't exercise or seek to exercise authoritarian control or dictatorial management. If that is the practice that is being called for, you will not find it here. And I hope it is not found over there. And if you want to give yourselves to that by then, or by all means, feel free to do so. When I came to this side of the aisle in these matters, Mr. Speaker, I came in the interest of democracy. And half the world abused me for it. Half of the world and the entirety of that party and its following abused me for it. But I stood for a cause, and I stayed the course. And I stand here in the interest of democracy, in the interest of the people of Barbados, and whatever I decide, no matter how it reflects on me, whatever I decide will be guided by those precepts and those principles. That is where the Honorable Member for St. Michael West comes from. Now, this is a necessary piece of legislation, Mr. Speaker. National honors to be conferred upon our citizens and others going forward. And as we change the constitutional status under which we operate, and as we move our democracy to the next level of maturity, it is fitting that we make the requisite changes to the now existing legislation. National honors for countries, and I'm sure it's the case in Barbados, recognize values that as a people we cherish. We honor people, we award people because they embody the values that we cherish. They reflect the actions that we hail. Young people today will say, big up, Mr. Speaker, you're sufficiently in touch with them to understand that language. They reflect and demonstrate the actions that we hail. They embody the qualities and exhibit these qualities that we salute as being ideally Barbadian, being ideally what it means to be Barbadian. And they distinguished themselves with reference to attributes which we would like to see emulated in the generations which follow after us, generations who follow in our wake and in our footstep. This is why we honor people. This is why we confer upon people our highest honors. My one concern about the conferral of national honors in Barbados has always been the specter of politics playing too significantly so a role in the selection of those who are chosen to be worthy and seen to be worthy of such honors. Too often, politics comes into play, and I would like to think that what we seek to do in setting up this framework and giving it legislative premise represents a desire to depart from the politicization of a process which really is signal in terms of how we conduct ourselves. Now, none of the values and virtues cited as being the bases for the receipt of any of these honors wears a political label or makes its appearance in political colors. Therefore, whether you're B or D or P or U or S or whatever, politics really should be rid. We really should rid the process of the semblance of political partisanship being a part of the selection of persons. Extraordinary service does not come necessarily in red or green or blue or yellow or orange. Extraordinary service is extraordinary service. You know what that is, Mr. Speaker. You have given extraordinary service to this country even before you came to these hallowed chambers. And you have shaped and helped to influence the minds of a lot of young people through selfless and sacrificial service in another life, in another space. Extraordinary service, meritorious achievement. These things don't wear party colors. They don't tout party slogans. Significant contribution to development. These are things for which we seek to award people, honor people. Acts of conspicuous courage come neither in red or green, or yellow or blue or brown or black or white. So I think that once we can establish a framework, a process, a legislative frame within which people can properly be identified and appropriately honored, we are doing a good thing. Just a couple of questions I have, and perhaps the Honorable Attorney General, when he gets a chance again, can speak to this Act. Clause 5, is it, or Section 5? President shall be the Chancellor of the Order and shall be responsible for the administration of the following. And it goes on to list the Order of Republic at A, and it goes right down to the Prime Minister's Award for Leadership at F. Now, the Order of Freedom is not mentioned there, and I do not know if this is intended or if it's just an omission in error, and there might be quite some proper justification for why it is omitted at 5. Order of Republic and others are mentioned, but the Order of Freedom is not mentioned there. That is at 5.1. At 7, Mr. Speaker, at 7, again, 7.1, the chairmanship of the order, there shall be a National Honors and Decorations Advisory Council, to be known as the Advisory Council, which shall consist of a chairman who shall be a minister nominated by the Prime Minister. It may be that that is the most appropriate thing, but the question I would have to ask, and I would wait to be better advised than I am right now, would it be better that the chairmanship or the chairman be the appointee of the president rather than the prime minister? This might be seen as clearly an important executive function, and therefore some would suggest it should be determined by those who properly head the executive here in Barbados, and that the chairman should be nominated by the prime minister, and that chairman should be a minister of government, as opposed to an independent person outside of the cabinet who is appointed by the president. And that may not be the most appropriate term, simply raising the question. At the same section 7, Mr. Speaker, 71C, 71C, it says, a council of is made up of the chairman and head of the public service. 3, at C, 3 other persons appointed by the prime minister. 3 other persons appointed by the prime minister. So the prime minister appoints the minister to head as the chairman. Then there's the head of the public service, that's 2 persons. And then 3 other persons appointed by the prime minister, one of whom shall be appointed after consultation with the leader of the opposition. Now, that means, in effect, of the convention and practice, all 3 of those persons will be appointed by the prime minister. You know what the process of consultation entails. The Honorable Prime Minister writes a letter to the leader of the opposition. I have decided that I would wish to invite so-and-so to serve in this particular regard. Do you have any objection? The opposition may object if he or she chooses so to do. Prime Minister is still in the authoritative position to determine what I have determined in the first place, notwithstanding your objection, will stand. So you would have, in effect, Mr. Speaker, situation where the Prime Minister appoints a minister, the head of the public service comes by automatic ex officio position, and 3 other persons appointed by the... I will not vote yes to that unless that is amended. I think in the interest of avoiding any appearance of politicization, the rather signaled position of authority that would be occupied by the head of government, the prime minister, unless you seek to avoid that by at least allowing for one person to be appointed by the office of the leader of the opposition, by the leader of the opposition. That clause I will not support as it stands. That clause I will not support as it stands, because I know what a nonsense can be made of this process of consultation. If that is amended to say 2 persons by the Prime Minister, who already appoints the minister to chair the commission, and the other by the leader of the opposition, whoever that happens to be at the time, then, Mr. Speaker, unless that is amended, I will not vote for that particular clause. At 4, on the same section 7 or clause 7, the advisory council can consider nominations of persons for appointment to the Order of the Republic, and it goes on. Again, the Order of Freedom is not included there, and it may be that the legislation that gives premise to the establishment of that Order of Freedom on its own can stand without reference to this legislation. I'm simply asking if that is the case, because quite noticeably it is omitted there again. I will support this, Mr. Speaker. We are giving an indigenous quality, further so, to the conferral of orders to our people who achieve excellence in various fields and in various ways in the interest of this country. I will support that, except for clause 7 or section 7 as it now stands, where all of the power of choice and selection of the advisory council that basically administers this whole process, all of that authority is given to the Prime Minister. I don't think that that is fitting. Thank you, sir.
Honorable Member for St. James South.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I consider this to be an excellent moment in the history of our country, that we've been able as a country to take the step to appoint one of our own as head of state. And today we are gathered to look at the issue of national honors. How are we going to acknowledge, lift up, celebrate those among us who work and sacrifice in the interest of country, community, village, who from their own heart of concern for others step forward to work in the service of the community. And so I really want to applaud the Honourable Member for St. Joseph for bringing this particular bill here, where we're going to establish now the national honors that reflect the honors of Barbados, how we want to acknowledge those who do well in our community. And I think it's important for our dignity as a people. I'm saddened to know that there are those who feel that the local honor is not as high as an honor from outside. It says to us that there's still some distance to go, but that will happen in good time. I think that the national honors would have to become part of our social consciousness, our national consciousness, how we see ourselves as Barbadians, and that what we must do is to take this program of national honors and integrate it into a wider program of how we're going to build national consciousness, how we're going to build a sense of community, how we are going to build a sense of valuing the quality Barbadian that we are. And I consider this to be very important because I believe that the national honors system can be a method of re-socializing our young in this country. I believe that we can use a program such as this to help us make a difference to how the next generation feels about themselves, how they see people in their community, and what role models they embrace to guide who they become and what they practice as a Barbadian. They need living examples of the Barbadian spirit and the Barbadian values. As a child, I would have heard of national honors, and you would hear briefly in between, oh, somebody got Sir this, and somebody got Lady that, or Dame that, and so on. But it never meant a lot to me because I would not have been engaged as a young person to really understand the significance of the conferring of honors on people. And as I think about our nation, as I think about the fact that we now need to refresh, to reshape, to restore certain values in our community, I believe that this national honors system can help us. I remember an old story found in the Bible, Genesis 29 to 30. I always thought it was a curious story. It was about Laban and Jacob. And Laban struck a deal with Jacob. After tricking the man for 14 years, he said, I want to give you a reward for all this hard work. And Jacob said to him, all right, here's what we will do. I don't want you to give me anything, because he knew he was dealing with a trickster. He said, what I want you to do, you take out all the speckled and spotted goats and sheep and so on. Give me the ones that don't have those spots. And any that come from this flock that are spotted and speckled will be mine. Because Jacob had a plan. Jacob understood what he needed to do in order to influence these genetics. Now, he probably needs to have a word with the Minister of Agriculture. I don't know what his secret was, but what he did was he went and deliberately got some trees and took the limbs and he scarred them. And every time the flock went to the water, he would put those in the troughs so that while they were drinking, they were gazing on these things. Now, I don't know if there was something in the tree that got into the water as well, but he understood that what people see and what Kool-Aid they drink has an influence on them. He obviously knew that, and he grew very wealthy by tricking Laban out of all the best of the flock, because he understood something that was repeated many years later in our time, that children live what they learn, and children learn what they live. And when you fail to put in position the specific, deliberate things that you want children to learn, you have to take what you get in a society. You have to take what you get in a society. And so, I feel that one of the values, the opportunity that is presented here, is that national honors gives us a tool to work with. And I'll explain why. In the United States, they did a little study and asked children, who are your role models? Who are the people who fill your eyes? Well, if it wasn't a superhero like Superman or Batman, it was one of the latest artists, gangster, or some other celebrity. And the people who were doing the survey were a little shocked to find the preponderance of young people who were more influenced by these characters than of the people that they expected them to name as heroes, as people they look up to. And because people will imitate consciously or unconsciously that which they admire, the person went on to write that the society was at risk. Now, I had the opportunity, Mr. Speaker, to be in Europe, and one of the things I noticed was the frequency with which statues were built in even the smallest village. Somewhere in the town center square, there's going to be a statue. And I wondered why they spent all this money on it. But then I realized that they were doing what Jacob was doing. You put before their eyes what you want them to admire. That every time they walk by, they see these symbols and the character of those symbols. That this is who you are. These are the people you come from. This is the stock from which you've been born and shaped. And this is what we expect of you. And so, one of the things they advocate when you're shaping a society, when you're shaping your youth, is that you have to tell stories. You have to share stories. But what stories are you going to use? If our children are imbibing television 24/7, if they're imbibing the stuff that flows to them here, unrestricted, if they are imbibing the music and all of the things that are out there, they are going to be confused because there's so many competing different voices. And so if we are going to retrain and hold our society again, we have to get our stories that symbolize the values that we want as a society and ensure that our children see it before their eyes all of the time and get the opportunity to drink of Barbadian values. And persons who are given these national honors, I want to put to the Parliament, are worthy. Their story is worthy of being shared and packaged in such a way that we are able to help form part of the influence that is going on in this society that is busy leading our young people astray. Stories. If we are going then to build these stories and add this as part of our national honors system to help retrieve the youth of this country, then there are a number of things that we need to trigger. I'm a firm believer, Mr. Speaker, that our university and our learned people in our society have a tremendous contribution to make in terms of shaping. I believe that our children, for example, should have access to the lives of the persons receiving honors, and that these should be written, these should be packaged and developed by people at our universities who maybe study literature and English or who are historians, that those stories should be captured and packaged. I believe that our social media giants, our people who are artistic, who can take messages, and our public relations people, and put together packages of messages, that we can use those to flow them onto this. Wherever we can capture them, wherever, whatever they're looking at, to ensure that we put and capture the stories where they can reach our children. I believe that these are the people they should be asked to write about. I believe that their history books should include some of these stories. I believe that our music, as a child, Mr. Speaker, and no doubt you might have had it too, I don't know. Nursery rhymes, Baba Black Sheep. Now, I don't know what Baba Black Sheep can do for me, but I do know that what we can do is get the children at, the young people at BCC, for example, who are doing English, who want to be poets, who want to write poetry. Let them begin to write the stories of the people that we are celebrating in our national honors. Create nursery rhymes and stories that our children can engage, and give parents a collection of books that can be used, and also to put it within the classroom. Because what we want for our children is to see persons like themselves, who come from communities like they do, who face challenges the way they do, that they see in their lives how those people met their challenges, how they conducted themselves, and how they contributed to society. One of the things that has been weakened and is deeply challenged at the moment in our society is the issue of volunteerism. We now have many persons in our society who don't see that they have an obligation to do community work and community outreach, who don't feel that anything outside of their house has anything at all to do with them, who feel that somebody else is responsible for sweeping up the garbage. Somebody else is responsible for changing what is wrong in the community, rather than a community feeling empowered to rise up and say, we can work together to make this better. And we will only begin to grow another generation of community-minded people if we lift up the stories coming from our national honors, so that they get role models. They see this is the way. This is what is expected of me as a Barbadian. This is what my society is expecting of me. And so I think it presents us with a grand opportunity, Mr. Speaker, to be able to rebuild a sense of community, to be able to create that sense of sharing and giving, to be able to demonstrate what hard work and determination and perseverance can do, so that people have a sense of place. They have a sense that they're not just their own, but that they are Barbadian and belong to a community of people who have wonderful qualities. And they can build a sense of confidence from that fact, because as they look at their lives, as they look at their communities, as they look at the stories, they see that person is like me. That is what I can be. It can help them to develop a sense of personal vision, because that has broken down in our society, and we need to find meaningful ways to be able to rebuild this so that our people have confidence. What has happened over the years is that our young people have admired celebrities, but they've not been brought up to admire excellence of purpose and value and behavior. And it is reflecting itself more and more in what they do and how they operate. And therefore, I want to highly recommend that we look at this and build it out into a wider program that can help us to be able to re-engage the youth. I'll end with this. One of the reasons, when I think back to my childhood, one of the things that always struck me was how close the village was. And that even if something was a little off in your home, there were enough people in the village interacting with you to help you to keep your focus, to help offset maybe something that was negative that might be going on in your home environment. That there were teachers that came into our lives and helped to nurture us. And there were people who volunteered to do clubs and Girl Guides and Scouts and so on. And therefore, our whole upbringing was not just what our parents could or could not do, but it was what our village did for us. And that link was so strong that the behaviors were consistent and the expectations were consistent right through the society. So much so, and we all know, we've all said this before, that if you did something wrong and somebody in the community saw it, they would lash you, call your parents, and you get another licking when you get home, because the community was of one mind. But what has happened, Mr. Speaker, is that that has been broken. And why did it break? First, I think that as a society, we did not recognize what were the planks that helped to create that community spirit that led to a village raising its children. So that when those things were removed or weakened, we were not alarmed in any way, because we had not truly examined what were these factors that helped us to produce the type of Barbadian that Barbados could be proud of. And so when it was endangered, there was no alarm. It was only when the break began to manifest itself in some of the antisocial behaviors that we're now concerned about that we realize and recognize that we have a problem. And so the circle has been broken. And what is needed now is that we find a way to rebuild so that we can pass values safely from one generation to another. And we have to begin to think through what are the ways in which we are going to pass values one to the other that will help each generation to be able to live a purposeful life and live a life in community and leave their community stronger and better because they were there, because they were present. And therefore, I want to suggest to you, Mr. Speaker, and to my honorable colleagues, that this system of national honors presents a great opportunity for us to recapture this, to hold before the eyes of our children the role models and values of people like themselves that they can safely trust and emulate and carry the Barbadian flag, not only here in Barbados, but take that flag all across the world. We already have a number of young people, exemplary, who do that. I want to congratulate them. And for those who will receive honors on this very, very special occasion, I pray that Barbadians will take the offer made by the Attorney General to make sure that they submit those names so that people could be honored for the work which they've done in the name of community and in the name of country. And so with that, Mr. Speaker, I am obliged.
Honourable Member for St. Peter.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I want to say a few words. This is going to be quite a brief presentation, not brief using the dictionary definition of the Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central, but using a more normal approach to brief. I felt a bit inspired to say something in relation to this bill. It had nothing to do, Mr. Speaker, with what sounded to me like an apology from the Honourable Member for St. Michael West. That what sounded like an apology was not the reason why I felt motivated to speak. I felt motivated because I had been looking at some photos of Golden Square. And I realized that more of us have to speak to all of us about our value system, our role models, the approaches that we take to life. And I believe that this system of honors that we are debating in this honorable chamber today speaks in a maybe not so subtle way to how we as Barbadians should view what we're doing now and view the kind of Barbados we want to leave for those who follow after us. Now, recognition is always important. If it is a thank you, a well done, and I must be very open to say that I do not do that often enough. And one of the reasons why I'm standing is to also to speak to myself. Because recognizing when persons do good work, when somebody goes beyond the call of duty, is necessary, especially when people are doing it out of goodness of their heart, particularly when it is seen and dismissed by others. It is important to keep people focused on doing right, doing well, being selfless by encouraging. And I think this bill goes in some direction in that regard. We must, if we are to maintain the Barbadian ethic, that ethic that is reflected in the work of Barbadians, the largest group of workers who went to the canal zone to construct the Panama Canal. Many of those persons died, lost limbs, were seriously injured, but took to Panama an ethic of hard work, determination. I'm talking about the Barbadian ethic that went to the United Kingdom in the 50s and in the 60s, work hard to rebuild a post-war England, in some cases not appreciated, but taking with them that ethic from Barbados, that ethic that spoke to hard work, excellence, focus, and determination. Mr. Speaker, I submit to this House that we have, as a country, to be very focused. We have to be very determined to maintain that ethic, that Barbadianness. The Prime Minister, the Honourable Member for St. Michael Northeast, speaks to Barbadians, global citizens, but with Barbadian values. Now, the only way we're going to maintain this is if we are intentional about what we do. We have to be intentional. We have, as we put together legislation like this, as we determine that we can manage our own affairs in all areas, we have to do all that we do, understanding that this is for the improvement of our country, our people, and we have to do it in a very intentional way. It can't be a hit or miss. We have to set out to reinforce these values. And so when I see a value that speaks to an award of achievement, I feel happy. Because an award of achievement speaks to achievement. We are rewarding when a person pushes past difficulty and achieves. Because achievement doesn't come without difficulty. Even people who achieve illegally, sometimes that is a result of dodging police officers, jumping over palings. Nothing that a person gets, either legally, illegally, good or bad, comes without some kind of an effort. And so when I see an award that speaks to a gold award for achievement, I feel good about this. I mean, it is not just because my predecessor as Member of Parliament for St. Peter often spoke of going for the gold. And so this will sit very sweetly with me, because in St. Peter, we understand that our mission is always to go for the gold. But achievement is something that we need to reinforce in our people. We are living in a situation of difficulty, serious difficulty, and solutions do not come as easily as persons who refer to themselves as sitting on this side. Solutions don't come just easy so. They have to be worked for. Sometimes you have to take detours to get to the destination that you want. Awarding persons for what we used to call stick-to-itiveness, focus, determination, and ultimately achieving even when the chips are down, when the odds are against us, is something that we need to reinforce in our people. Excellence is also one of those things that I think we have to make sure that these don't just become words on an inscription somewhere, but that the idea of excellence is pushed whenever we're talking about these awards. Achievement and excellence. These are values, these are aspirations that all of our people must be focused on going toward. We must be going in this direction. There is something I want to say, because there have been a number of people who have said that part of what we are doing as a government is to reduce the significance of some of those who have gone before us, particularly the father of our independence, the Right Excellent Errol Walton Barrow. Now, I think in this bill, there are a couple of things that reinforce what the Honourable Member for St. Michael Northeast often refers to as the relay race in government and governance. The fact that we have as one of our important honors the Trident of Excellence tells me that we are staying connected to the independence movement. The symbol of the trident, the broken trident, is one that reflects who we are as Barbadians. Once we look across a set of flags, and we see the trident, we immediately focus on it. That is Barbados. That trident, which is in our flag, is one of our independence symbols. And I'm happy, Mr. Speaker, that in our list of honors and decorations, that we would have the Trident of Excellence in two classes, the Gold Trident of Excellence and the Silver Trident of Excellence. The other thing, which is not necessarily in this bill, is the fact that, as the Honourable Member for St. Joseph said, we are a small R republic. And that, again, I don't want to be lost on us. We have not and do not intend to change the name of the country. Because this is not about starting over. This is not about starting fresh. This is not about bringing glory to a set of people at a point in time. This is part of a continuum. Barbados continues. We do not become the cooperative republic, the Commonwealth of, or the Republic of. Barbados remains Barbados. The bearded ones, the people who the other people got rid of. But these things say to me that as a mature government, we understand that government and governance is not about appropriating any fancy stuff to yourself, but that you take the baton, even in difficult situations that we have found ourselves, and we move the process forward. Somebody down the road will take over from us. And speaking of somebody down the road, this list of honors has two other sets of honors that I want to just mention before I take my seat. There are those who will come after us, who we all, like now, have to be inspiring. These are the ones who we have to be intentional in terms of how we help them to focus on the future. And I'm happy that this list of honors includes the Prime Minister's Award for Leadership, which we've been given for the past couple of years, to encourage young leaders, school-age leaders, to say to them, even though right now your leadership is at the school level, we as a nation recognize it as an integral part of our national leadership. Because the nation is managed not just from the center, the nation is managed not just from government headquarters, but the nation is managed by people operating in all kinds of areas at all kinds of levels all across this country. And so we say to our young people, in this list of national honors and decorations, the Prime Minister's Award for Leadership is one of those honors that we bestow on our young people because we recognize the value of the work of our young school-age leaders. And the second one is the community honor of the Pride of Barbados. And that, again, speaks to a recognition that the work of nation building is a work that encompasses all of us at all levels of society and in all spheres of activity. I want to encourage Barbadians all across the spectrum to make use, and that's reinforcing something that the Honourable Member for St. Joseph said, I want us to make use of the opportunity that we will have to nominate persons for awards. Civil society organizations have, for many, many years, many decades, been instrumental in the development of our society. I am calling on Barbadians across the board to seek out those who have put heart and soul into many of these community-based organizations, non-governmental organizations, civil society organizations, the non-state actors. Seek out those persons who have, not for salary, not for any kind of gain, put much of their resources in terms of financial resources, their time resources, their energy into activity to lift up their communities, to uplift disadvantaged groups. I am calling on Barbadians to nominate some of these persons for some of the awards that, through this legislation, are now distinctly our awards. These are Barbadian awards, and these Barbadian awards are for Barbadian people, or honorary persons as well, but Barbadian people who reflect that spirit of achievement, that spirit of excellence, that determination to succeed against the odds as we seek to develop our nation. And so, Mr. Speaker, I support this bill very, very strongly, and I support the ethos that informs it. We can make determinations about the values that we promote. Let us, through this system of national honors, make that strong statement that we are a country determined to excel. We are a people determined to achieve, determined to succeed as we continue to go for the gold. I'm obliged to you.
Honourable Member St. Joseph.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that you do know, I've already moved a second time, I already did that. Yes.
You have to move that the bill be read a second time, sir.
So the COVID numbers got me a little anxious.
Yes, sir.
To get over, sir. Mr. Speaker, let me thank those members who've spoken. I just want to clarify one matter for the Leader of the Opposition. He's pointed out that in Clause 5.1, the Order of Freedom is not mentioned there. The rationale for that is quite simple. The Order of Freedom actually has its own statute, which says that the Governor General, the President, will be the Chancellor of that particular order. So it is already provided for elsewhere. But if you look in this bill at Clause 4.1, you will see that the Order of Freedom is mentioned there as being part of the pantheon of orders. Mr. Speaker, I suppose I should resist any response in relation to the matters that transpired last week, but I will say that the Leader of the Opposition is absolutely right that a consultation took place with him, and that consultation received the benefit of input from the Leader of the Opposition, which was accepted by the government side. And that yielded a result which saw us agreeing that we would have a 2/3 majority. That really has always been the position on this side, but we're happy that the opposition and us and our side saw eye to eye on it. But of equal importance was the suggestion of Leader of the Opposition that if one person should object, that we should divide and go to our separate houses, and that there'd be a secret ballot. Now, the criticism that was offered by the honourable member from the other place was that you needed to have rules about this and that there was no procedure and all kinds of things. Sir, if your member had trouble to read the bill itself, he would have seen that the bill provided for a vote and that the bill provided for a secret ballot. And those things were met handsomely. The specific form of the ballot, Mr. Speaker, you determined the procedure to be adopted, and and so there's, all of that is sorry. Though. Anyway, Mr. Speaker, that is now history, and I think that we can look forward to moving ahead. The Leader of the Opposition has advanced the position that he would prefer to have an individual appointed in Clause 7.1c upon his advice, rather than after consultation. And Mr. Speaker, I propose to make an amendment which will acknowledge that position when we go into committee. So the member for St. Michael West will have his wish once again in this regard. I hope that he recognizes that this is an administration that on matters such as these, we dig deep and we reach across the aisle and we try to find mature consensus. And I think that is what governance is all about. And as I've already moved that it be read a second time, sir, I therefore ask that you do not leave the chair and that the House resolve itself into committee for further consideration of the bill.
The question is that the Speaker do not leave the chair and the House resolve itself into committee for further consideration of this bill. All those honourable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Again?
Speaker, I just ask that you do not leave the chair and that the House.
You have to move.
I can't understand
You
what
have to move the. You have to move the second reading again, honourable member.
Mr. Speaker, I've already.
Do you have to? Honourable member.
You want me to move the second reading a second time?
You have to. Move it.
Mr. Speaker, for the second time, I beg to move that this bill be read a second time.
A second time. The question is that this bill be read a second time. All those honourable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Me think the ayes have it.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that you do not leave the chair and that the House resolve itself into committee.
The question is that the Speaker do not leave the chair and the House resolve itself into committee for further consideration of this bill. All those honourable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Me think the ayes have it.
This House is now in committee.
Madam Chair, we're going to call it in parts and clauses. Part 1, clauses 1 to 3.
Three.
Madam Chair, I beg to move that clause part 1 being clauses 1 to 3 stand part.
Question is that part 1, clauses 1 to 3 stand part. All honourable members in favor, please say aye. All those against, please say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
Part 2, clauses 4 to 21.
Madam Chair, I propose an amendment in clause 7.1c, and that amendment would see, sir, the striking out of the words after consultation with and being replaced with the words upon the advice of. So the sentence would read now, 3 other persons appointed by the Prime Minister, one of whom shall be appointed upon the advice of the Leader of the Opposition. Beg to move that Part 2 with Clause 7 as amended stand part.
Clauses 4 to 21. Clauses 4 to 21 with amendment.
No, it'll be more.
7. Question is that Part 2, clauses 4 to 21 with an amendment at Clause 7, stand part. Honorable members in favor, please say aye. All those against, please say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
Part 3, clauses 22 to 23.
Madam Chair, I beg to move that Part 3, being Clauses 22 and 23, stand part.
Question is that Part 3, clauses 22 and 23 stand part. All honorable members in favor, please say aye. All those against, please say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
Part 4, clauses 25 to 28.
Madam Chair, I beg to move that Part 4, being Clauses 25 to 28, stand part.
Question is that Part 4, clauses 25 to 28 stand part. All honorable members in favor, please say aye. All those against, please say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
First schedule.
Madam Chair, I beg to move that the first schedule be the first schedule to the bill.
Question is that the first schedule be the first schedule to the bill. All honorable members in favor, please say aye. All those against, please say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
The second schedule.
Madam Chair, I beg to move that the second schedule be the second schedule to the bill.
Question is that the second schedule be the second schedule to the bill. All honorable members in favor, please say aye. All those against, please say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
Third schedule.
Beg to move that the third schedule be the third schedule to the bill.
Question is that the third schedule be the third schedule to the bill. All honorable members in favor, please say aye. All those against, please say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
I didn't go back to that. That was the third?
Yeah.
Yeah. Fourth schedule.
Beg to move that the fourth schedule be the fourth schedule to the bill.
Question is that the fourth schedule be the fourth schedule to the bill. All honorable members in favor, please say aye. All those against, please say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
The fifth schedule.
Beg to move that the fifth schedule be the fifth schedule to the bill.
Question is that the fifth schedule be the fifth schedule to the bill. All honorable members in favor, please say aye. All those against, please say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
The sixth schedule.
Beg to move that the sixth schedule be the sixth schedule to the bill.
Question is that the sixth schedule be the sixth schedule to the bill. All honorable members in favor, please say aye. All those against, please say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
I beg to move that you do not report His Honor the Speaker the pass.
Madam Chair, just for completeness, I had mentioned, I think it was 25 to 28, but there should be some consequential renumbering because we moved from 23 to 25, but that will be done as housekeeping.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I beg to move that you do not report His Honor the Speaker the passing of one bill with one amendment in committee.
Question is that I do not report to His Honor, the Honorable Speaker, the passing of one bill with amendment in committee. All honorable members in favor, please say aye. All those against, please say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
The chairman of committees has reported the passing of one bill with amendment in committee.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that this bill be read a third time.
The question that the aforementioned bill be read a third time. All those honorable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that this bill do not pass and be cited as the Barbados National Honors and Decorations Bill 2021.
The question is the aforementioned bill be passed and so cited. All those honorable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it. This bill is passed and so cited. Bill, this is correct. Where do we
Of papers.
Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central.
Mr. Speaker, I'm commanded to lay the Government of Barbados Mid-Year Review Report, April to September 2021.
Could you repeat, Honourable Member?
Mr. Speaker, I'm commanded to lay the Government of Barbados Mid-Year Review Report, April to September 2021.
The previous bill mentioned by the honourable member for St. Joseph was passed as the Barbados National Honours and Decoration Act 2021. That is just for clarification to this honourable chamber.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With that, we've come to the end of today's sitting. I beg to move the adjournment of the House until the 2nd of November at 10 a.m.
The question is that this honourable chamber be adjourned until Tuesday, the 2nd day of November 2021 at 10 a.m. in the forenoon. All those honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Me think the ayes have it. This honourable chamber stands adjourned until Tuesday, 2nd day of November 2021 at 10 a.m. in the forenoon.